All right, everybody, welcome back. Episode 92, Culper's Canteen Cup. I only know it's episode 92 because Luke told me right before everybody muted for us to kick this off, or I would have completely forgot. So, welcome back, another episode. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Carlton Zeus for uh, for that intro music. Go check him out www.carltonzeus.com or over on Apple Music. Luke's trying to work the magic right now to get Zeus on here, hopefully in the near future, so you guys can actually hear from the man himself what's going on. From what I saw, man, he's got a lot of irons in the fire right now. Um, so we'll try and we'll see if he can carve out some time for us. He's super busy. He's got yeah, maybe he's got a couple more listeners than we do. So, you know, but but we'll see. Um really don't have a whole lot on the agenda today to talk about after the last episode. We just wanted to huddle up real quick before the holiday weekend and BS a little bit. Um there's some other stuff going on in the sports world right now. I saw Roger. Told you, Roger, get your thoughts on it and see what it's going to do for college football. But saw USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. Um, and I wonder if the Big Ten's going to change its name now that it has more than 10. And is the 12 is Pac-12 is the Pac-12 going to go to the Pac-10, or like what? Like how is that going to work? And how does this change? How does this change college football? And do you think other teams are going to look and follow suit? Now, granted, this one's not supposed to take effect until 2024, from what I read. But I think what about those other teams out there that may be lining up to switch conferences or join conferences if they're still independents?
So the Big Ten, I think, actually has like 20 schools in it. So I think that's why they changed their little symbol, their little logo to the B1 and then the G, but they still call themselves the Big Ten because they're the oldest conference, according to themselves anyway. But yeah, UCLA, USC, and we talked about this before a little bit. I think what you're starting to see is that schools, well, it was conferences, and I think it's happened a little bit faster because I think the last time we talked about this, we were talking about the power of the NCAA and the conferences taking it back, right? And I think I never imagined it would happen this quick. I think what you're seeing now is these schools actually taking the power away from the conferences. We alluded to it, maybe a year ago now, but I thought it would take several years to play out, right? But you look at USC, UCLA, big time schools. These are big names here. And to go to the Big Ten, you're starting to realize that, hey, NCAA, you have no power. Conferences, you really have no power either. I mean, you have the power of the purse. It really comes down to the schools. So I do see a lot of the schools really going the way of the professional athlete. When you look at, I was talking to my son yesterday about this, and we were talking about, athletes back in the day versus today and the loyalty. Like, if you were a Lakers player, like you weren't going to Boston. You were not going to play for the Celtics, period. Right. If you were a Steelers player, and we're not talking about later in your career, your last year two before retirement, we know that happens. But like, you remember when Joe Montana left San Francisco? I mean, even he went to Kansas City, but him leaving, right? I mean, it was like, holy shit. I mean, he's leaving. This is Joe Montana, right? And then you started to see it a little bit, play out a little bit more years later where players would go off in their last couple of years. You had your Michael Jordans even end up with the Washington Wizards. Hey, I'm gonna do my last 2 years here because I'm really not helping out the Chicago Bulls anymore. They didn't want him back, whatever the case may be. But you didn't have players in their prime really move around anymore. And I think you've seen that for the last 10 years. They blame it on LeBron James, which I think when he went to Miami, that was really the start of that. And I think you're starting to see that in the college level transition to the schools, the individual schools, to where one, it's all about the money, which I don't blame them. I get it. It's whoever is going to give you the most money for your TV rights, for the games that are televised and for your players. But from the other aspect of it, you have to look at it from a player point of view. And I'll preface this before I throw it out to Luke. I'm just going to be one of my long-winded caveats before we get into it or whatever. But I think you're starting to see, okay, so the hub for sports is Midwest, East Coast, period. Okay, and I'm talking about the SEC. So SEC, Big Ten, ACC. You can you throw in the Big 12 with that as well. But the West Coast has just never really been that big of a powerhouse consistently. Now you had UCLA decades ago. Gonzaga's been trying to make a run. You had USC in football 20 years ago. So you've had these little snippets, but your powerhouses have always been, SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and then the Big 12's always had, a top three or four teams that were solid, contenders every year. The West Coast hasn't been that way, and believe it or not, I think a lot of it's the weather, right? Like when you look at the Chargers when they play football, I mean, their stadium it's 75% visitors because everybody else is out surfing, everybody else is out at the beach. It's a tough sports market. Now they do well because of overall population, right? But when you look at per capita, most people are doing something else versus East Coast, especially when the weather gets bad. People hunker down, stay in, they watch football or whatever. But I think what you're going to start to see is schools not only moving towards those power conferences back east, but it's also on the players, right? And so I wonder at what point do players start to pressure these schools or have some say? Because let's say I'm a high profile player, college basketball player, and I play out at UCLA. The scouts aren't going to see me. I mean, that's a fact. Uh, I need to go to an ACC school. I need to go to an SEC school. I need to go to a Big Ten school because 95% of the scouts and televised sports, maybe not 95%, but it's all based on East Coast times, East Coast teams, and your level of competition is greater, right? That's always the argument against Gonzaga. Yeah, they go 31-1. Well, you played like Western Montana Big Sky Community College, in your final, your conference finals or whatever, versus playing at Kentucky, playing at Duke, playing in Indiana, playing your perennials, right? So if you're a big time college player, it's like, hey man, you need to see how you stack up against these other players, and that's going to increase your draft value or your professional value. And my son was talking about, I think it was Scottie Pippen's boy, and saying, hey, he averaged 20 points a game and this and that. And I think he went to Vanderbilt, which they've got some pretty good competition. But the bottom line is, uh, he didn't have the television time. He wasn't playing up against the country's best. So your value is just very limited. And you may be a better player than what you're showing. But obviously, if you're playing against the best every year, whether it be college football, college basketball, or any college athletics, your value goes up, right? So I guess, Luke, I mean, at what point do you see one? Answer Josh's question. I think you're starting to see the colleges themselves realize that they wield the power, and they're going to go where they want, what's going to benefit the school as far as revenue goes, television time, this and that. At what point do you see players, because you got name and likeness that we've talked about before, and then you start looking at that professional route and being scouted, having the television time. You need to be on that 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon, ACC Big Ten challenge. At what point do you think players themselves, and maybe even touch on unions, right, to where they have some say in the direction that the college goes?
That's funny. I never thought about college players being unionized, but hey, man, I guess anything's possible. I think we definitely covered this before. It's in a different way, talking about the players and you know what's going to influence their decision with the name and image likeness thing. I think that I don't know. I think it'll be cyclical, but I still hold by what I said before that they will go to the bigger markets, which is kind of what you're saying. East Coast, Midwest. Um, I worry about schools that are in smaller towns with the name and image likeness deal for mid-level, 4 star recruit types who are like, man, I could actually, I'm scraping by right now. I could actually make some money if I went to a bigger market. I'm never going to go pro, but I might make some money if I, go and play at UNC, Vice, Texas Tech, for instance. Always going to come back to Texas Tech, right? So I guess that I don't know the players. I just don't know. I think it'd be cyclical. I really do. But I'm with you that the West Coast is never going to be a consistent powerhouse like some of the areas and schools that you mentioned. But before I go on with that, because I do agree with a couple of your other points, we got a 2-star review. I think that was on iTunes Right,
Yep.
Roger? I was on
Yep.
iTunes. So it's a 2-star review, and the gentleman or woman who said this, who gave this review, said something to the effect of, "Came for humor, got political commentary, 2 stars." It's like, okay, so you know what? We want to make our audience happy, so we're going to inject a little humor into this episode every once in a while. So, how does the moon cut its hair? Eclipse it. So there you go. We give the audience
That's
what they
terrible.
want. So anyway, I thought it was a really good point with California, Roger.
Don't ever do that again.
Oh, you're in for a big surprise. So I got more than you can take a stick at. So you had a good point with California. You know, that's a tough market for sports, but the population saves them, right? Now, Josh may correct me if I'm wrong here, but I kind of draw a comparison with Florida on that a little bit with respect to pro teams. I mean, yeah, you got the Miami Heat and whatnot, but like the Dolphins, I mean, yeah, those stands are rarely full of home fans. A lot of visitors love the Dolphins. A lot of out-of-state fans love the Dolphins. They'll go to the games. Jacksonville Jaguars, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I guess maybe they could be the exception. I don't know. With their little pirate ship in the stadium, but I thought that was interesting, that point you made about Florida. I've been working out at this gym, and in this one area, it's like the CrossFit room where they have all the real weights, the racks, not the machines. So I work out in there, and they have a bunch of TVs with all the sports channels on them, ESPN, ESPN Plus, all this stuff. So instead, when I get done with a set, because I'm old and I hurt after every single set, I'll act like I'm watching TV, so I have an excuse, to be sitting there resting for longer than I should. So it's like, if I act like I'm really interested in this. So I have been seeing some, a lot of sports news, tickers and whatnot. And I saw a lot of folks in the NBA, a lot of players are moving around. And this is kind of to your point, Roger, a little bit. I saw that, what's his name? Not James Harden, Kevin Durant, sorry. Kevin
Coming to
Durant
Phoenix, baby.
Yeah, he wants to be traded. So he's going to Phoenix? Interesting. So that guy
Well,
graduated from
it's
UT.
not inked, but he expressed interest in coming to
Okay.
Phoenix.
Well, that guy's from UT, so he won't be, he has no loyalty to anything. So he'll be moving on for Phoenix in a matter of time. But I saw that James Harden, right, gave up a $43.7 million option to stay with the team he's on to become a free agent. He just went ahead and passed on that. $43.7 million to stay. And he's like, no, I'm bouncing. And I was like, dang, man, that seems like a lot of money. And I want to say it was for a really short amount of time, like 2 years. It was an option that he could have exercised. And it's like, man, why would you move? And so I started thinking about it. It's like, well, if he moves teams, first of all, if he's with a crappy team, I couldn't even tell you who James Harden played for last year. Was it Brooklyn? I don't even know. It might have been Brooklyn.
Yeah, I think he played with Brooklyn, and then he asked for an immediate trade or something like that. Because
Okay.
I mean, you had Kyrie Irving who couldn't play; he was hurt. Kevin Durant was out for the year, so it's just been a train wreck over there.
Yeah, a train wreck there and a train wreck in LA. I think I've never liked the LA Lakers. Always hated them, and it was just so delicious when they didn't make the playoffs with their super team. Loved it. But anyway, so James Harden, he's moving on. I was like, man, it seems like I started thinking about it. It's like, okay, if he's on a crappy team, and James Harden is, I wouldn't say he's getting long in the tooth, but he's moving up there. It's like, this is a way to get your name out there again. Now everyone's talking about James Harden moving. Okay. And everyone knows that most of these athletes make way more money on the outside. Their salary is only a very small, well, not very small, but it's less than half of what they actually make if you're a superstar. All of it is from, shoe deals, commercials, deals with car companies, things like that. And it's like, this is a way that this guy can get his name out there again and get a whole new, now he's got a new jersey. We can get him on this commercial, or he can, do this shoe now or whatever. So it's like, man, that 43.7 million, I'm sure his agent knows what he's doing, because the agent gets like 1% or something like that of everything they make, some 3%, 6%, something like that. So I guarantee this was a good move for Harden. It's just, I don't know. I that just struck me. Maybe that's not interesting to anybody, but I was like, there's more than just, I guarantee it's not, well, I'm just not happy with the team I'm at with James Harden. There's got to be, what's the answer to 99 out of 100 questions is money. money. That's the end of the day. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't know, Josh. You kind of threw me for a loop there talking about the conferences, man. I just learned something just now while Roger was talking. Y'all know how I love to let my mind wander when Roger talks, but I shouldn't. I should listen to it because he's a smart guy. But I didn't know, and I might have known this if I listened to Roger more, that I did not realize until just now, and I should have, that the conferences, the NCAA conferences, are 501c3s. It's like, oh, okay. Well, no wonder the universities have so much power. Oh, well, they're 501c3s too, but not really. But you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's just I did not realize that until just now. And yeah, I think we're bound to see now with the two teams leaving the Pac-12 that there's going to have to be a Power 5 conference realignment at some point. They're going to have to call it something else, the Power 4 or the Power 3 or something like that. It's just there's a realignment going on right now. I think it's interesting. I, for one, am looking forward to actually being true to our name, which is Big 12, having actually 12 teams. I'm looking forward
Is
to
the Pac-10 done? Are they done?
Pac-10 done. I don't know.
Pac-12, Pac-10, whatever the hell they're going to be, two-pack. I mean, are they? Can they pull anybody else that's willing to? there's my joke for the episode. Is there anybody they can possibly pull in to make them a quote unquote power conference?
I think
that would be willing to go.
I think now we're going to start seeing. And Josh, tell me if you agree. I'll give my answer, and you can let me know what you think, or let us know what you think. I believe that they're going to have to go the way of the Big 12 and the Big 10, pulling in West Coast teams, where they're going to have to like look way out there. You know, maybe steal Cincinnati, which is not a huge, somebody like Cincinnati, steal them from some other conference or whatever, kind of like what the Big 12 is doing with BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston is still, in Texas, but they're going to have to reach out. I don't know which teams they'd get. Josh, do you have any ideas? You want to see your beloved Florida State go over to the Pac-12?
No, absolutely not. Florida State, dude. Florida State's not leaving the ACC. I mean, Florida State's putting asses in seats for the ACC. I mean, come on. I don't.
That was the start of the football conference for ACC, right? Or their football run. That was the big move, was bringing in Florida State.
Was bringing in Florida State. Yeah. And then Florida State, they won the ACC championship, like 13 straight years. I think it was 12 or 13 straight, titles. And then they just kind of fell off a cliff. I don't know. We'll see what they do. They've had a fantastic recruiting year this year. So we'll see. They're still rebuilding. The big thing was the O-line. They went out and they went out and got a number of 5-star JUCO O-line recruits. I think the shortest, the smallest offensive lineman that they're going to have rolling into the season, I think is 6'3", 310 is their smallest one. So I mean they went out to Nebraska, Kansas somewhere, and they got some big corn-fed boys for that O-line. So I don't know, Roger, your question, does the Pac-10 start? They're going to have to get somebody, because I mean, you just lost UCLA and University of California. Like, who else is really left that people are going to, that people are actually going to show up and watch? And I'm talking about, like, hey, who's any of them going to be in the top 10 going into?
You got to pull like a Gonzaga, right? What conference is Gonzaga in? They're in.
I don't know, but I think Luke's right. I mean, they've got to reach. Man, they've got to reach back across the Great Plains and grab a Cincinnati. Maybe they can finally talk Notre Dame into joining. I doubt that'll happen, but they've got to. They're going to have to do something. So I mean, you had Texas and Oklahoma. Come 2025, they're in the SEC. So they're, man, I don't know. Like, it's going to. So, Gonzaga is a West Coast conference. I don't know, dude. I don't know that there's a whole lot of teams out there for them to really pull, unless, Luke, that may be an option. I mean, does the Pac-10 absorb the West Coast conference? And become just one of these big conferences. Pac-10, do they reach into Florida for like it was a University of Central Florida, University of South Florida? Um, man, but then are you
Wait,
really?
wait. Listen to these powerhouses though in the West Coast Conference. Okay, BYU that's leaving. Okay, I'll give them that. Gonzaga, Loyola, Marymount, University of the Pacific, Pepperdine, University of Portland, St. Mary's, University of San Diego, San Francisco, Santa Clara University. That's a powerhouse right there, son.
Yeah, yeah, dude. Nobody's taking your conference seriously anymore. Especially even on the West Coast, they're not even taking that seriously. Dude, they pull in Gonzaga. Gonzaga would probably be the conference champion out of them.
Well, I mean,
Um,
they won the WCC college basketball, or their conference championship like 21 years in a row or 20 years in a row or some shit like that.
yeah, yeah. I even think Gonzaga. Does Gonzaga even have a football team?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm going to
They
go
may
with
not be able to.
no.
Yeah, I was about to say, man, they might not be able to pull Gonzaga in because they don't. They might not even have a football team. Um,
Oh, they
I
got a
don't know.
football team.
Oh yeah, all right. Well, there you go. But Gonzaga to the Pac-10. You
Actually,
know,
wait a minute. Their last
they
season
probably.
was 1941.
So this is what happens when you wait until during the episode to do due diligence. Um,
Gonzaga last fielded a varsity football team 81 years ago in 1941.
I love it. You know what?
But
They could.
from 1892 to 1941, they went 134, 99, and 20 with one bowl appearance in 1922. They lost to the undefeated West Virginia Mountaineers, and so are 0-1 in bowl games.
Holy moly! Hey, well, dude, on those numbers, they have 2 years, right? Because this doesn't take effect till 2024. They've got 2 years to get a football team up. It'd be like Adam Sandler in The Longest Yard. And dude, I think they could. I think they could swing it. I think they could swing it. So yeah, we'll see what the. I mean, man, college football season is always the best time of year. Um, it's dude, it's fall. It's not blazing hot on the East Coast, and college ball hasn't gone crazy woke yet. But speaking of crazy woke, so the Braves are just behind. They're like 3.5 back on the Mets. I haven't been able to watch a whole lot of games, but just trying to keep up with them a little bit. Even though Luke says I'm not a Braves fan, uh, and oh,
No, you're not a Falcons fan.
oh, whatever,
Same
whatever,
difference.
whatever. I haven't. I tell you what, I haven't been a Falcons fan since that Super Bowl. That and since the NFL went crazy woke. Dude, that Super Bowl against the Patriots, that was terrible. You got beat like Tina Turner. That was just it was bam. Second half, man. Second half, like, hey guys, there's two halves to play. You just can't play one half and then mail the rest in. Especially not against Tom Brady. Like, dude, you're gonna get Brady the ball with when he's down and time on the clock. He's gonna make you pay. But yeah, so the Braves are doing pretty well. The Nationals right now are not doing really well. I think they're like 29-45 or something. They're like 20 something. They're like 19, 22 games out of first. So our condolences go out to Joe Dillon. Uh, hate that that's happening right now. The good thing is that the Phillies aren't in first place either. So
Hey,
God's looking out
times are
for 'em.
tough for him if he actually hits us back up. It's like, hey, man, you got another spot on the show for me to come back on the podcast.
That'd be bottom of the barrel. Damn.
He would definitely be so.
He'll be
So
like that old sportscaster, like 80 years, alcoholic, fucking smoking cigarettes and shit on C3.
yeah. Oh man. Oh, so the speaking of the Braves, so the Atlanta distillery, ASW, just did a special release bottle of their fiddler, and they named it Chin Music, and it's it's a commemorative Atlanta Braves World Series bottle, and I managed to get one. Big shout out to Chris for snagging that for me. I sincerely appreciate it. So I hope now now Nicole can't find out about it. Hopefully I can slip it into the back of my new bourbon cabinet.
Now Luke will tell on you,
Without
man.
hearing about
Luke
it.
will
I
tell
know
on you.
Luke. See, he's all about diming people out. That's I tell you what, that's a government employee right there. That's a government
Snitches.
Yep.
employee through and through.
Snitches. Former CI guy too. Double
I
whammy.
know. I know. Hey man, it's terrible, 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 terrible. My last note on the sports piece is Gene Deckerhoff, the voice of the Florida State Seminoles for almost 50 years, no, a little over 50 years, finally retired. Last season was his last season, but he didn't announce it there at the at the end. He kind of did. He made some overtures of that was going to be it for him. But they just hired some new dude who's going to do it, man. But Gene Deckerhoff, if you never heard him, take a listen to him, man. That guy was truly the voice of the Florida State Seminoles. So that's all I got on the sports piece. What else we got on the docket? I don't know.
We got Colin Kaepernick, first of all, staying on the sports piece. So I don't know, you guys been tracking like you had to work out with the Raiders, right?
Oh, yeah, somebody said that, like they burned the tapes of it because it was so bad or
Warren
something.
Sapp. Yeah, Warren Sapp said it was just a disaster.
Yeah, and then I think one of the I think it was Arrington that came out and said, "Hey, if Warren Sapp, because Warren Sapp speaks his mind, they're like, hey, one thing that Warren Sapp is not is a liar," and they're like, there is a reason that there are no leaked tapes of his workout, because if his workouts would have been great, they'd have been all over the place, right? I mean, as his agent, you would be pumping that stuff out there, YouTubing and rumbling and all that other good stuff, and I think that just with that fact that you haven't seen anything. He's probably, I don't know, man. I think he's done the NFL. You think, Luke, you think anybody brings him in as a backup? Does somebody get hurt? Yeah, I mean, because it always happens, right? Tom Brady breaks his leg, whatever. Does somebody get hurt and they say, hey, you know what? We're bringing in Colin Kaepernick?
No. I mean, anything can happen, but if it's as bad as that racist Warren Sapp, who is white, by the way, now, that he insulted Colin Kaepernick in public, I don't know how any professional organization would bring him in unless it was just a gimmick. I'm going to throw it right back to you on that one.
Josh just said that Brady on a broken leg is still better than Cap. Yeah. No,
yeah.
Absolutely, dude. No way that dude comes back.
How old is he? Josh already asked that. I don't know. I guess I'll do some due diligence while you're talking.
Yeah, do a little bit of gurgling there. And then in the big news, because I pretty much stopped watching wrestling, right? Because AEW went woke, so I pretty much stopped watching them. And then I don't know. I still don't have an issue with WWE. It's just like the you can tell that they're hurting for talent. I think the labor market is not just impacting like fast food restaurants and your Walmarts and this and that. I think it's also starting to reach into sports entertainment, because it's the same tired, played out, storylines. The athletes, they're hurting, right? They had to bring John Cena on last week, and for his 20 years in the WWE, and he didn't even wrestle. Like I thought they were bringing him back, and then somebody would get in his face and this and that. And okay, that's the new storyline, dude. They didn't even do that. They literally just celebrated that the guy's been in the WWE for 20 years. I mean, that's how bad it's getting over there. But to top things off, and I don't know if you guys are tracking this, so like Vince McMahon's got like rape allegations against him, right? I mean, so I think one was so Cap is 34 years old. So I mean, so that dude's done, right? I mean, he doesn't come in the NFL this year. He hasn't played and you're getting close to a decade. You're 34 years old. You'll be 35. I mean, if that dude doesn't make it somewhere this year, and this is the 1 year where he says, well, I'll sit the bench. I'll play as a backup. It's like, you know what? Maybe you should have done that, a couple years ago. And, oh, by the way, maybe you shouldn't be moving your tryouts and your workouts, last minute so that NFL teams can't. The dude doesn't want to play. That's the end of the day. The dude doesn't want to play. And it's coming up with, any excuse that he can. And it probably helps all of his legal claims against the NFL and this and that to make more money. I mean, who knows what his payout was? It was probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars, not to go to court over this stuff. But anyway, you got Vince McMahon, who, I didn't realize that him and Linda McMahon were separated, not like legally separated, but I guess they live in different residences. And Linda McMahon, for those that remember, she was the small business SBA director or whatever that position is called under the Trump administration. But apparently he was nailing one of the female wrestlers and then doubled her salary, up to like, it was either like $2 million total payout or whatever. And now I think one of the first female officials came out and said that, yeah, he raped her back in 1984 or whatever. And now another wrestler has come out and said, yeah, it's basically validated the story. And I say validated. I shouldn't say validated, and it's not corroborated. From what I remember, I think it was one of those that she told him about it later on. So as far as corroboration goes and this and that, who knows? But it's funny because as those allegations continue to come out, he's back on TV. So he's taken a back seat. Says, okay, I'm going to step down off the board temporarily. His daughter Stephanie McMahon is going to be the CEO, the acting CEO, until the WWE conducts its investigation or whatever. But I think we all know how that plays out. But I don't know, man. Luke, does this? It seems like it's people in power. When you look, it doesn't matter what the industry is. When you have these folks that are billionaires, I mean, they basically do whatever they want, right? I mean, they do whatever they want. They think they can get away with whatever they want. So I don't know, man. You think how long before something comes out with well, Elon Musk? They already tried to beat him up over it, and of course, I love his response. Hey, if I was really into that type of stuff, you'd have a whole bunch of allegations, right? It's like, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But who's next? I mean, you have Jeff Bezos, which he just had pictures of his wife that I think she might be like 19 years old, or girlfriend or whatever it is. You had Bill Gates getting separated because apparently he had a girlfriend that one night a year or 1 week in a year, his wife would cut him loose to go play with a girlfriend. So, at what point do you see like a Mark Cuban, or who's the next billionaire to go down to, sexual assault or rape allegations?
That's a tough one. That's a good one. I think not a billionaire, but I could definitely see something coming out about Joe Rogan, true or not, because he is under such a microscope, and people are, certain segments of society are looking for anything to bring him down. Um, I could definitely see Bezos. Are you kidding me? And you know what? And the solid fact is, and it's getting less and less attention, which is a shame, is that Ghislaine Maxwell, or Ghislaine, or however you say her name, she got 20 years. R. Kelly got 30, but Ghislaine Maxwell got 20, and we have yet to see any client list, and we never will. So a lot of these folks are probably already on that client list. I mean, come on. This is one of those things that's staring everybody right in the face. I guarantee everybody listening to this right now is nodding their head in their car or at their desk, wherever they're listening to it, and they're just like, yeah, dude, come on. There's a reason we haven't seen that client list, and it's not to protect the privacy. No, it's not. People are paying somebody to keep that client list sealed. That's all there is to it. I
A
think
whole
that,
lot
yeah,
of people
she
are paying,
deserves.
right? Left and
Oh
right.
yeah,
A whole
yeah,
lot of people are
absolutely.
paying.
A lot.
Yeah, and it's not just the client list. It's anyone who had any kind of association with the scumbag. You know what I'm saying? I mean, any association at all that is going to bring down someone's career, even if they didn't go to the island, even if they just went to his house just for strictly dinners and stuff. It's still going to bring him down. Man, guilty by association type thing. So, gosh, where was I going? So yeah, a lot of these folks, yeah, we talked about this way back. It's like, why are so many of these people pedophiles? And we might have been talking about Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name. Why is that?
Epstein.
Epstein.
Epstein. That's what it is. Epstein didn't kill himself. That's right. So I think we talked about why are so many of them pedophiles? Why do so many of them, like Roger said, just do whatever they want? And I think it's just they can do whatever they want. So the things that thrill, the three of us, well, Josh and I should say, Roger, with his $50 coffee mug, maybe he's on the ledge there, but the things that thrill normal people like the three of us in our audience don't thrill billionaires anymore. They can have anything they want. So therefore, they've got to go after something that's taboo, whether that's what Vince McMahon is alleged is accused of doing, or Epstein's client list and all this stuff. So I think it really truly is as simple as that. That also, and a lot of billionaires are straight up sociopaths. That's one of the reasons they got to where they are. So those two things, but I've been collecting, not collecting. I kind of have a OCD aspect of my personality where I will save things, and I'll throw them all away at one time, and sometimes for good reason, like batteries, right? You know, batteries are bad for the environment. If they go in the landfill and stuff like that. So I have all my dead batteries, in one place, and I finally gave them all away today, free of charge. So, Josh,
Love it.
real quick, you and I were having an interesting text conversation. Maybe we'll see if this has any legs with you and Roger, and then we'll move on to something else if it doesn't. But I said something, you said something I can't remember earlier, but it ended up being, we were talking about Indian food from the subcontinent, Indian food, uh, not fried bread, but more like fried naan, right? So we were talking about the best Indian food we ever had, and I said something. I was like, we're talking about, well, the best Indian food I had wasn't in India; it was here or there. And I remember telling you, I said, the worst Italian food I ever had was in Italy, and that is absolutely that is true. That's the worst. It was like it was worse than Chef Boyardee, because at least Chef Boyardee has taste to it. So, Josh, you want to expand a little bit on your conversation, like where you had the best Indian food, so on and so forth?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's crazy, right? When you think about, food and where the best food is, you think it would be, where it's from. I remember when the first time I ever, well, the second time I ever went to Germany, when we were coming back out of the Balkans, and we wound up and we stayed in Darmstadt for like we were there for like 48 hours, waiting on a bird, and so some of the leadership are like, all right, hey, you guys can go out to dinner tonight on the town, and they told us that we couldn't drink, but we did anyway. uh so anyway, that's that part's neither here nor there. And so we got down there and it was like, all right, man, we're gonna, or some of our leadership was like, we're gonna go to this Italian place. And I was like, well, we're in Germany, shouldn't we go, shouldn't we go get some German food, get some schnitzel and stuff? And they're like, no, man. They're like, you want Italian? And it was like, well, okay, well, that doesn't make sense to me. Why? They're like, because the best Italian food is not in Italy, it's in Germany. For what they had experienced anyway. And it was, dude, it was very, very good. And I was telling Luke, I got some friends that are still stationed in Italy and stuff. And one of the things that they lament all the time, they're like, the food is absolutely terrible. There's a friend of mine that lives in Naples, and he's like, dude, the food here is atrocious. It's absolutely terrible. He's like, I hate it. He said the only place he's ever been in Italy that the Italian food is actually legit is Sicily. He's like, you have to go to Sicily. Um, what you got, Luke?
Yeah, Naples, real quick. You're talking about the guys in Naples. So the Italian pizza, the Italian style pizza, the birthplace of the pizza, is not good. You can't eat it with your hands. You basically, if you let it sit there for more than a minute and a half, it gets soggy. It gets soggy, and it's not that good. It's just not. Now the crust is okay. It's not the best I've ever had. It's okay, but here's my point about the Naples thing. And right back to you, is that there are like special schools to teach people how to make Neapolitan pizzas from straight from Naples, the birthplace of pizza. I was like, and it costs a lot to learn how to make this pizza. It's like a month-long course. And it's like, you go to school to learn how to make the worst pizza on earth. I mean, that's it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. Anyway, so the best Italian food I've ever had was actually in Germany, and one other place where I absolutely did not expect to find any good food was in Mogadishu, Somalia. There was this little place that operated on the airfield, and the airfield in Mogadishu, for folks who've never been there, it's basically like a big forward operating base. That's where you have all your international aid organizations, the African mission, that's fighting Al Shabaab and handing out rice and flip flops. They're all there on the airfield and stuff. And they had this little Italian place there that had some really, really good Italian food. And Yeah, as far as Indian food goes, that's definitely in my top 5 of favorite foods. The best I've ever had was at this restaurant. I was in a course, and our classmate, his parents own this Indian restaurant out in Tyson's Corner. I can't for the life of me remember the name of it, but so he took us out. One Friday or Saturday night, he took everybody out and got us some free food. And dude, it was absolutely phenomenal. It was so good. And I don't know if you guys ever had Indian beer. It's Taj Mahal beer. They're a little bit
I think
bigger than it.
Chimay is also Indian, right? Is it Chimay?
Uh,
No, that's
I,
Belgian.
Is it
Chimay. I thought it was
M-A-Y?
Belgian. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
yeah, no, I haven't had it, but the Taj Mahal beer, it was actually pretty good. Um, so it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy where you find your best places. The best, I think, the best Mexican food I ever had. And granted, I only have border towns, right? Mexican border towns to compare this to. And we've all been to Nogales at one point or another in our life. Maybe you want to talk about what's happened, in Nogales. Maybe you don't want to talk about what's happening in Nogales. Nogales can be like Vegas sometimes. But been to Tijuana, and dude, but the best Mexican food I had was actually in Djibouti. There was
Wow.
this there was this Mexican joint in Djibouti that opened up, and it was a little hole in the wall place. And I tried to talk to the guy that was like, how did you because he was legit Mexican, out of Guadalajara, and I was like, legit, like, how did you get here? Like, tell me how you got to the Horn of Africa. But I never got a chance to actually have a conversation with the dude. But it was absolutely phenomenal. It's crazy. It's
So,
crazy as
so when
shit.
you talk about like your best Italian food that you've eaten in Germany, so are they cooked by Italians that live in Germany, or they're actual Germans cooking Italian food?
No, so the one I had was actual Italians, because they came out and they were speaking Italian, and whole 9 yards. They were not the Germans.
So
Um,
they cook shitty pizza back in Italy, but do great jobs in other
I
places.
don't. So I didn't get the pizza. I forget what I had. I had the pasta, man. But the sauce was damn, man. The sauce was on point. I mean, it was straight like it was like what's his face in Goodfellas in there. It's like slicing the onions with a razor blade to where it just liquefies when it went in the pot. Like it was crazy. It was really really good though. So, but it's
Now
weird.
you guys are making me hungry because for the canteeners out there, we always complain. We're getting older, all three of us, and it gets harder to stay in shape. And I was doing some traveling, came back, and it was at the heaviest that I've close to the heaviest that I've ever been at 214. It's just when you're traveling, it's hard to eat healthy. And so when I got back, I'm like, man, I got to get back on the wagon. I got to start eating right and this and that. So this week, it's been all like tofu and vegetables and just, I try to stay away from the meats and stuff like that. So this stuff is making me extremely hungry, and it doesn't help that today's Friday. Because I try not to eat bad until like Saturday or Sunday, but then I justify it in my mind. I'm like, hey, it's a long weekend. It's Friday. Friday might as well be Saturday, which means I'm also going to eat like shit on Monday. So basically, everything I've done from Monday through Thursday, I'm going to rapidly undo, over this weekend. But yeah, making me extremely hard. But you're right. It's like when you talk about like some of the best foods. Like I remember the best Italian food I ever had was in Sarajevo, outside one of the back gates there, a place called Piccolo Mundo's. And it makes me wonder: is it that good because there are limited options? Right, like in Sarajevo, there aren't a whole lot of Italian restaurants, roaming around. So it's like when you're eating the rest of the ethnic food and what your typical daily staples are, and then you finally get Italian food, and it's like, oh man, this is like it was like when I left the box one time. I think I flew through Italy, and I had Taco Bell, and it had to be the best freaking taco that I had ever eaten. But it's also the only taco I had eaten in 6 months or whatever. What's up, Josh?
In more ways than one.
There we go. See, you just
uh,
took us straight to PG-13, or is it
What?
NR-17? What do they call that
NC
now?
17. NC
in
17.
NC-17,
NC-17.
whatever the hell it is. Tell
Jesus.
us about your shawarma, Josh.
Oh, dude, I just got it. And Luke can attest to this. Hands down, the best shawarma I've ever had is in Erbil, Iraq, at a place called Chicken Chicks.
Oh
It is,
God.
dude, it's stupid good. Like it is absolutely stupid good. Like I mean, it was to the point where even like I would get in a vehicle by myself, which you weren't supposed to do. I would get in a vehicle by myself. I would take my phone and my weapon, shove it in my pant, dude, and I would straight be like, I'm going to get shawarma, and I don't care what happens. I may get kidnapped, I may get blown up, I don't care, I may get street stopped, whatever. Like I'm going to get some shawarma because this stuff was, it was absolutely amazing. So sorry.
You know what, Luke? I got an idea. I got a book idea. C3 should put out a book, and we should put out a book of like nationwide dive restaurants. Have our listeners input, right? Have our listeners shoot us places that, hey, these are places you got to, because as we all travel and we got listeners all across the country, it's like, hey man, you come to these areas, these are the restaurants and the holes in the wall. And we're not talking about like Denny's or Popeyes or something like that, but like your legit hole in the wall mom and pop restaurant, something like that. That might be pretty cool. So make that happen for the next one.
Dude, that's legit.
Yeah, like
That's legit.
a travel guide. And we still got folks that are serving their country overseas and stuff like that. So I mean, we could put the international ones on there.
Even that would be cool. I mean, because who knows, right? Yeah, you're traveling overseas and you happen to be somewhere. You're like, hey, you know what? Let me check this place out, and it better not suck.
Legit.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea because with the three of us, as much as we've traveled, we've got definitely some places. I'm thinking.
Well, that much as the us three fat asses like food. I mean, we definitely know where the eating places are. It's like, oh, if that I know your daughter probably doesn't listen to this, Luke, but she should go check out if she's ever up in Seattle. On the north side of Lake Union, there's this little hole in the wall joint. There's like 4 tables in this place. It's called Roro's Barbecue.
Oh, I heard of that. Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, you told me to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, so Chris, Chris from the Whiskey Made Me Do It, him and I were up there one time and we smelled some barbecue and we heard some Johnny Cash playing, and I was like, this is Seattle. Like this is not happening here. Like everything smells like patchouli and poor life decisions. And we found this little place called Roro's, and it did legit barbecue, fried okra, and sweet tea, and had Johnny Cash on the radio, and it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, dude, I was gonna. Well, I'll go ahead and say it anyway. This will go in the book. We got to come up with a snappy title. So if anybody's got any recommendations, but best Indian food, if you find yourself in the south of the Netherlands in a town called Maastricht, you have to go to the India House. And what was funny is I've heard the best Indian food is in the UK. I've been to a few in the UK, and it is very good. But man, that one in Maastricht in Holland was just out of this world. And it was funny because the owner had immigrated from India, and everything, but he had a bunch of Nepalese cooks. And I didn't know anything about Nepalese food at all. And so I went, I was such a regular at this place that I'd go back in the kitchen and watch them make the food. And, they spoke pretty good English being from Nepal and close to India. And I said, so what's Nepalese food? Make me some Nepalese food. They're like, it's spicy, man. You can't handle it. And I was like, bro, you can't make it spicy enough for me. And that was like, I had thrown the gauntlet down and whole. That's the spiciest food. That and some Korean soup I had one time in Colorado Springs, where it's not spicy. It's like a habanero spicy, where it's like it burns your mouth. You get a nice slow burn in your mouth. It's like, whew, yeah, that's hot. And then you start sweating. Like 5 minutes into the meal, I mean, like you start sweating, but it's not like unpleasant. Like your throat is burning. It just heats your shit up, dude. It heats you up. So Roger, Korean food. You didn't really cover any Korean food there. I mean, I know that you're a Korean food connoisseur. So, any good places out there in Apache Junction?
Believe it or not, there's generally speaking, if you go to any military base, you have a large Korean population outside the military base, and any of those mom and pop shops are going to be fantastic. But we do have an Asiana market out here. So it's actually, I think, in Chandler or whatever. And it's like a Korean food court, man, which is pretty cool. It actually reminds me of being back in Seoul or Daegu or something like that, where, you've got like 9 or 10 little restaurants. And, but surprisingly, I had really good Korean food in Budapest. When you cross the river, I was there with my wife years ago, and you cross the river and I was like, hey, I wonder if they got some Korean food here. authentic Koreans. They were in there, and walked in there and ordered some Korean food or whatever, and it was freaking fantastic. So, when it comes to Asian food, it comes to Korean food. You can do like your H Marts, that type of stuff. If you're looking for groceries for the actual restaurants, go to any base. I can't say I've had any one that was better or worse. If you're close to any base, you go to any of those mom and pop shops. Because there's really very little deviation from the spices. You're talking about like the gochujang and the slow sweat. It's not like in the States. There's very little deviation from the spices, so it's pretty consistent across the board. And I don't think I've ever been anywhere where I've had like bad Korean food. So what were you saying on the shawarma?
I didn't get to comment on the shawarma, but man, there are some food choices that you have. Good brisket's one of them, where you're eating it and you're like, you're full. And it's not even that you should stop eating because you're full. You don't care if you're going to get fat because it's so good, but it's like you force yourself to eat more because it's just, you're like, I don't know, next time I'm going to have something that's good. And
Yeah.
it literally defines that shawarma place in Erbil, as Josh rolled out by himself. We do the same thing. It's like, this is literally to die for. It's worth
Yeah.
dying for. Right?
it was a calculated risk. But man, God, it was so good. And Roger's spot on the Korean, the Korean restaurants. Here you just go to Fayetteville, North Carolina, next to the epicenter of the universe, Fort Bragg, and go roll down Yadkin Boulevard, right? Go and just pick your place on Yadkin. And there you can find all the tattoo parlors
Yeah.
as and the pawn shops.
That's what I was going to
Hey,
ask you, because we have some non-military listeners. We have some non-military listeners who do not live in military towns. So, Josh or Roger, whichever, why don't you give me 5 things that are outside every single military installation, 5 or more?
Pawn shop.
Oh man, yeah. So, yeah. So I'll rattle off a couple, and then Roger can round it out. So pawn shops, Korean restaurants, and strip clubs. And Roger can take the last however many, because I think there's going to be more than 5.
Yeah, you're also going to have the car lots, right? The lemon lots were refinanced from E1 and up. You got your tattoo parlors that are going to be out there, and the strip clubs. I think you're seeing less and less of. I mean, like Fort Bragg. I mean, I know they still got a bunch of them, but they used to have a whole row of them out there, and back in the day, doing other nefarious activities. But and I think vape shops. You see a lot of, because for those that don't live around like military bases, especially if you're, for the folks that have never been in the military, you get that rank from E1 to E4, where maybe not compared to most Americans, but there's a lot of disposable cash that these young men and women have, because most of the time, most of us at that rank, we lived in the barracks, right? So you lived in the barracks. That means your rent's paid for. You have no utilities, and especially back in my day, our day when we were young, there were really no cell phones. They were just starting to roll out, and this. So you really had no bill. You had what? Maybe a cable bill that you shared among the barracks, whatever. That you paid like your $28. So, I
Yep.
remember joining the Army, my paycheck was $764 a month, something like that. I think that was the E1 pay or whatever it was. So after taxes and everything, I had $333 every 2 weeks. So you have no rent, you have no utilities. You ate at the chow hall, so you had free food. So basically what that meant was I had, just over $600 a month to do whatever it was that I wanted. So it's just all disposable income, and those businesses outside the gates, because everybody needs some 20-inch dubs on that car that you finance for 28% interest. Cash payday loans, right? That kind of goes hand in hand with pawn shops. So that's how it is. You buy the items, and you always see like the what do they call those? The rent centers, right? So you always find these
Rent
people.
to own.
Yeah, rent to own. They buy the items, and it's, what, it's the circle of life, because I've got an extra 5 hundo. I need that 42-inch TV. I can't make the truck payment at the end of the month, so it goes right back to the pawn shop to get $300 out of it, and then Luke goes into the pawn shop the next day and buys my TV that I had to pawn for $375 or whatever. So it's the circle of life, man.
It's so it's nuts, and what some of that has changed. You still see some of it, but what happened, was 9/11, right? So you had the mid to end of the 90s, it was the Balkans, you were lucky enough to get on, the Bosnia Kosovo tours. Like, dude, when we came back from Kosovo, everybody bought new vehicles. Like I dropped my 1990 Ford Ranger, in 2000. Like I basically, kind of got rid of that, and I went and used, paid damn near almost paid cash for, a brand new truck, and drove it off the lot because, like you said, I was an E4. I lived in the B's, and I was, largely irresponsible with my money. Um, and not necessarily irresponsible with my money. I was just irresponsible in general.
You're an E1, dude.
No, man, I was an E4 by that time, man.
Oh,
I had the
E4. Oh, that's
dude,
right.
I had the sham shield and everything. Like, man, dude, yeah.
He's
So, dude,
rolling in the dough.
I can't. Okay, so y'all forgot. Well, maybe not forgot. You didn't get a chance to mention payday loans because those still exist. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So surplus stores to include Ranger Joe's and all that, and dry cleaners. So you're going to see those outside of every military installation. So my first car that I bought on my own was, and they weren't swindling me or anything. This was 1998, 99, I think. Dude, I'm not ashamed to say it. 19% interest rate, man. For a $19,000 car. Yeah, $19,000 car. I
But
paid
you had
that
no
sucker
credit
off.
back then.
No, I had no credit. And I ended up paying, I think, $31,000 for a $19,000 car, which was a Jeep Wrangler of all things. But yeah, I mean, and I think that someone back in Maryland is still driving that thing, believe it or not. I ended up giving it away, which I should not have done. But so okay, so let's a quick question for you guys. So I told my story of the 19% interest, which is embarrassing. And maybe I'll think of another one before I ask this question, but I'll tell a quick story. There was a soldier at Fort Bragg, E3, who showed up with, it was a sports car. It wasn't a Corvette, but it was some Nissan thing that Nissan was putting out, like this high powered sports car. And this kid, like with the doors that opened up and everything. And this kid rolls in with that. And he was in my squad, of course. And I heard about it. Somebody called me, and it was like an emergency. This kid shows up in the parking lot with this car, and he had just bought it from down on Yadkin or wherever it was. And it was, first of all, he couldn't afford it. He could not afford the car. They called me in emergency. Like, you got to go talk to this kid. You got to go talk to this kid. We all knew he wasn't rich. E3 pay. And literally, even without the interest, he could not afford it. He would have like $2 left over at the end of every month. But this dude had a 34% interest rate on it. And First Sergeant Renee, the one who took a dump every time we went on a company run, same one. She calls me like in my barracks room. She goes, you gotta go take that thing back. And this was like an hour after he rolled into the parking lot. So I was like, oh my God, here we go. I was like, because he signed the papers. He signed the papers. And I was like, oh God, this is gonna be ugly. So I went ahead and put on my uniform, told him to put on his uniform. It was a stick. It was a standard, and he didn't even know how to drive a standard. We got in a car, and he's like, and I was like, how did you drive this back from the dealership? He's like, I don't know, man. I'll get used to it. I was like, dude, we're taking this thing back. I had to drive it back. It's a sweet ride. But I was expecting like a knockdown drag out with the dealership and everything. Nope. As soon as they saw me walk in with him, they were like, okay, yeah, this deal's off. They knew. And Josh, you can tell us why. And also tell us maybe the dumbest purchase you made as a lower enlisted.
Yeah, no, they knew, and then what they didn't want to happen, they didn't want to wind up on the off limits list, and so that's why you didn't get the hassle. Because once you're, for those of you who don't know, like in installation, like if there's local businesses that are ripping soldiers off, or there's some massage parlors that are giving the happy ending, or places of ill repent, like the installation will put them off limits. And generally, once a business in most military towns, once a business is placed off limits, that's a death sentence for that business. They will they'll go out of business. So the dumbest purchase that I made as a lower enlisted, so I actually didn't do it as a lower enlisted. I was an NCO. Which which makes it even worse, probably. And it wasn't a purchase. So when I left Bragg, I went to Puerto Rico, and I got to Puerto Rico, and I was, man, I was like, man, I'm on a tropical island. Like, you got to live on the beach. Like, you can't live in the barracks. You got to live on the beach. Well, in E5 back in 2001, I got there, yeah, because I got there like spring of 2001. Man, E5's in 2001, like we weren't at war yet. September 11th had yet to happen, and E5s didn't make a whole lot. But I was willing to take a look and be like, I know that's way over my BAH, but it's on the beach, right? And it's on the beach in the nice part of town. So basically, I was using my entire BAH plus some. And when I say plus some, maybe half of my base pay, right? Just so I could live on the beach. And it was dumb. Like, it was truly stupid because I had just enough left over to buy some groceries and put gas in my truck to get me to get me to PT and back. Basically after that, and then there was sometimes where I'd have to stay and shower at a buddy's house after PT on post, because it was like, yeah, man, I can afford the gas to go home today, but I can't afford the gas to go home and then come back to work and then go back home. Right. So that was probably the dumbest thing that I'd done with my money. And so my wife and I, we got married while I was, living down there. And so she shows up, we get married, we do our little quick honeymoon, and then she shows up. I was home for like maybe a week before I was TDY. I was gone for a month down to South America. And so I get an email while I'm in South America. She's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I moved us on post. Like, we can't afford that place. You're stupid." And she was like, "I'm not gonna be poor." And so I got, dude. By the time I got home, like new house, lived on post, like rent wasn't an issue or anything. That was probably the dumbest thing I've done financially. As a younger soldier. I was, like I said, I was an NCO by that point, which made it even worse. But yeah, man, whatever. It was fun. I got to live on the beach for a while. It was cool, dude. Get home, go downstairs, change, go downstairs, go body surfing in the mornings, go out on the beach before I go to work. It was yeah, man, it was legit.
I mean, there's a lot of stability, and this is what leads to the stupid purchases, right? There's a lot of stability with the military. Like, you can't quit. They're not going to fire you, so you're getting paid. And my dad used to have an old saying like, "Hey, you're always going to make more next year. You'll never make less than what you're making now." Because even during the crappy years, you'd get a 2% pay raise or whatever. BAH would go up or whatever. So it's like, hey, and that's how you justify it, right? If I'm just skating by right now, well, next year it'll be better. Well, no, it won't, because you'll buy something even dumber, that costs even more. And I've been fortunate that I haven't made, I guess I think growing up, it was not really having a whole lot of foresight as far as vehicle purchases. Like, just because it makes sense today doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to make sense, next year or 2 years. And I'm not saying like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. Sometimes it didn't make sense like a month down the road. But it's, I had a period there, I think my wife and I, where in the matter of like 4 years, I mean, we probably went through like 8 or 9 vehicles, and there's no, and some of it we had to, right? When we had a kid, the car seat did not fit into the Nissan 300Z anymore, so you had to upgrade to something else, and then you don't get the right vehicle, and it's like, oh, you got to take it back and trade it in, then you end up upside down. So I mean, I think for like 5 years there, 6 years there, we were probably upside down on vehicles to where hell, we could have just bought 2 brand new ones outright and been better off. But that's always been the big thing for us, was the vehicles. Fortunately now, we've kind of kicked that stuff behind us, and when you talk about, and it's different with Luke's case, I think when you talk about the 19% interest in this and that, because when you're starting out, like, you have nothing, and it's a lot different, I feel, back then than it is now. Like now with my kids, we got them a Discover card early on, right, to start building credit. took my kids and added my daughter to as an authorized user for one of my credit cards, which she freaked out because of the limit and the way her debt to income ratio. She's like, holy cow. It's like, hey, this is how you build credit. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have credit, you can't finance anything. When you look at credit reports, and this is criminal, when you look at credit reports don't account for assets. It's all debt, right? And what your debt to income ratio is. So, at least now with my kids, we got them a Discover card in their own names, obviously. And, it's a low limit. They pay it off and this and that. But it's a shame because it's like, that's the only way you're going to be able to afford a house or a car, or I shouldn't say afford. The only way you're going to reduce your interest rates is by having, some type of credit. Yeah. And, Josh is talking, credit cards are the devil, and they are. But the reality is, if you don't have credit, you don't have a good credit score. I mean, I've got good buddies that have a very mediocre credit score that have no debt. And you know why they have a mediocre credit score? Because they have no debt. So it's like, fortunately for us, we have great credit, but we leave our cards open. I mean, we don't use them. Well, we have one that we use for like expenses, and we pay it off every month. But you have to leave them open, because if you end up closing one of them, you take a hit on your credit score. Right. It's not really set up. So, when you have a lot of those privates that come in and they end up buying those vehicles at 34% interest. And, I've done the same thing with, Luke did, where I had a soldier buy, oh Lord, he bought he had tires on his car. So you're doing your typical 4-day inspection, right? And it's, we go out there and I was like, hey, you need new tires. He went down the street, and this was out at Fort Leavenworth. He goes down the street to some tire shop, and he comes back with used tires that were worse than the tires that he had on there to begin with. Right. I was like, what are you doing? You go back down to the shop, and it was the same thing Josh did. Guys like, oh yeah, they knew they screwed this guy over. But anyway, my point being, a lot of that stuff is just parental upbringing. Like, you have to raise your kids to know that stuff, because guess what? They don't teach it in schools anymore. Right. We talked about civics classes and accounting and financial planning. They don't teach that stuff anymore. And that's just not the way of the world. And so if you don't teach your kids that, they're going to end up being that private, with the 34% interest rate. I want to jump subjects real quick, unless Luke, you've got something else to say on this.
Nah, just it's counterintuitive, right? The whole debt thing and having credit is counterintuitive. I had a straight up and I've tried, the kids don't listen. That's why I was hoping that maybe they'd come see you, Roger, because they don't listen to me. I could tell them the exact same thing. You'll tell them the exact same thing I tell them, but since it's coming from you, they'll listen, right? Because it's not Luke, right?
Because dad doesn't know shit. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Not at this age anyway. But so I tell them all this stuff all throughout the years, and it's counterintuitive. They don't really realize it. They're listening. They're like, nah, that can't be right, because I know better. It's counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical in their minds. And then I had a comical conversation with my daughter a few months ago. It was the same conversation where Scott farted in the car and couldn't smell it, and that's how he realized he had COVID. Same time. I was talking to her while that happened. So she was at the car. She'd basically just come back from the dealership, and naturally she's up in the Washington area, so naturally she's buying a Subaru, right? But she didn't buy it yet, and she was explaining to me, look, I have this. Let's say it was $30,000 or whatever. I don't remember how much it was. And she has, she's always been really good with her money. She's got like $20,000 in her savings account. And she's like, I'm thinking about making a $20,000 down payment. I was like, don't do that. I was like, don't do that. You got to build your credit. One of the reasons you're not getting the percentage rate that you want is because you don't have enough credit. So we had the whole conversation. It's like, put $7,000 down, so on and so forth, so that you owe more. You can make the payment, but you owe more. So you build your credit. So the next time, whatever. And it was a comical conversation, because I don't want to do that. Won't that since I owe more, won't that make my credit score go down? It's like, no. So yeah, it's counterintuitive. It's hard to explain to kids, but yeah, change the subject, Roger.
So I want to get your take on Liz Cheney. So I saw the thing that Josh retweeted on Twitter, and it was the debate up there in Wyoming, right? And according to the polls, and again, they're just polls and they're early on. So Harriet Hagman, if I'm pronouncing that right, supposedly she's, it's like 56 to 26% her over Cheney. Like, she's crushing Cheney. Okay. According to the polls. After, I don't know, Luke, if you saw the tweet that Josh kicked out, where it was like a 2-minute snippet of the debate. dude, I do not have confidence that anybody's going to beat her based off that 2-minute clip.
That anybody's going to beat Liz Cheney?
Yeah. I mean, I did not have confidence. And I don't know, Josh, maybe you can speak to it since you reposted it. Hearing that, and again, the thing went on for an hour, right? So maybe, maybe they stepped up their game for the other 58 minutes. But and I cannot stand Liz Cheney. Like, I don't know what her end game is or whatever. Maybe you can address that. But I don't know, Josh, what was your takeaway from that? I did not have any confidence in anybody else up on that stage. I had no confidence in Liz Cheney either, but she was the only one who could put a coherent sentence together.
Yeah. So we're going to cover this, and then we're going to I'm going to change the subject again, back off politics. Yeah. So I saw that clip, and it was honestly, it was worse than watching Joe Biden talk. Like Cheney's, one of her opponents. It was a complete unmitigated disaster. When she was talking, it was so bad. It was truly like listening to Biden talk. It was really, really bad. And based on that, I think people are going to have to count on. People aren't going to be voting for that candidate. They're going to be voting against Liz Cheney. That's what it's going to come down to for them to beat Liz Cheney, because they're not beating her based off of that at all. Luke?
Boy, I sure hope she loses. Nail on the head there. I think this is a Hillary Clinton situation. Now, granted, man, I haven't even been to Wyoming in like 20 something years, but man, oh man, I know that they're pretty conservative up there, right? And I think this could hopefully be a Hillary Clinton type situation. It's like anybody but her, anybody but Liz Cheney. That woman, oh, so sickening, so sickening. She, yeah. So that's kind of what I think. She has bigger plans, though. I really do. I found, I love reading these news articles that just float an idea out there and then completely go away the next day. And it by reputable, quote unquote, I'll just say mainstream outlets. And one thing that was kind of floated the other day was it just floated out there. Just let's see what kind of steam this can pick up. Is that apparently when Joe Biden was thinking about choosing a running mate, the name John Kasich came up. Let's put a Republican on here, and maybe we can unify the country this way. I'm just saying that I believe when I see a story like that, they're sending out feelers to see, maybe we could think outside the box here and maybe sneak Joe Biden across the finish line by bringing in a moderate Republican like Liz Cheney. I could see them. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I guarantee conversations like that are happening. So, Josh, what else you got?
Well, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the American Customer Satisfaction Index picked their number one rated restaurant in America. Can either one of y'all take a guess at what that is?
Popeyes.
No, but dude, they are not picking that. Dude, they are not picking that garbage.
No, hold on.
Hey man, let me finish.
What's the name of the fake organization you're talking about? What's the name of this fake organization?
It's the American Customer Satisfaction Index. I will, dude. I'm texting you the article right now.
So was it?
Guess what? It's the Lord's Chicken. It is Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A was rated as America's favorite restaurant for the 8th year in a row.
Not Applebee's?
No, not Applebee's, man. not Applebee's. Too many drunk people at Applebee's. Like, dude, there's been too many incidents at Applebee's. Applebee's is like that's like the Denny's, right? You look at Denny's, like, I don't know how many times I've been thrown out of the Denny's in Sierra Vista, but it's been it's been a few times. I don't think I've ever been asked to leave an Applebee's, but there might have been a time or two that's come close. The Denny's in Sierra Vista, though, multiple times. I've been asked to leave that place multiple times.
Can you tell while leaving names out? Could you either tell a memorable story of getting kicked out of Denny's, or if you want to, getting kicked out of that place that me, you, and Chris ate at in DC? Like, to give us some backstory. Like, why are you always getting kicked out of restaurants?
So okay, so every I don't know if you did I don't know if you went out a lot while you were at Huachuca. Um, I don't know if you did the Texas Annie's, circuit and
A bit.
yeah. So I turned 21 when I was out at Fort Huachuca, and so that meant that I was free. I didn't have to go to the Ozone, every night when because the Ozone was convenient because it was right there in the parking lot of the barracks, and you only had to be 18 to drink on post at the time. And my
Tell us why. Tell us why. Sorry. Tell us why. For what Juka said, you know what? Here's a good idea.
you what talking about putting the bar in the parking lot?
Yeah, the 18-year-old thing.
Yeah,
There's a reason for that.
I I forget the
The,
whole backstory on it,
the
but it was
reason was the reason was I'm sorry to derail your story, man.
no,
But
no, go ahead.
the reason they lowered the drinking age on that military installation to 18 is because they didn't want anybody under 21 going to Nogales, because that's what all the privates were
Oh.
doing. Is they were like, well, we can't drink here, but we could sure as hell drink in Mexico. And they go down there and binge drink and get in trouble. And so they were
That's
like, you know
right.
what, here's how we're going to solve this. You know what, talk about a common sense approach. I mean, you know what, that makes a little bit of sense to me. So sorry to derail your story there.
No, 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 no. That makes perfect sense. So anyway, so we would go to when I got there, until I turned 21, we would go to the Ozone because it was right there in the parking lot. You could be 18, go over have a few beers, which I think if you're in the military, you should be able to do anyway. That's for a different episode. Um, and so, but I turned 21, man, and everybody was like, "We're going to ride the mechanical bull at Texas Annie's." And Texas Annie's had this thing on was it Friday night or Saturday night? I forget it was, but it was any coin, any drink between like 7 and like 809 or something like that, right? It was something stupid. But it was any coin, any drink. You could walk in there with a handful of pennies, and you could give them a penny per drink, right? So that's probably not the best thing to do with someone who has just turned 21. And I don't think, dude, within 45 minutes, like man, I was, I was feeling pretty good. So mechanical bull, whole 9 yards. And as most of the time happens, you wind up, to get some midnight pancakes, after a night out. So we get there to the Denny's, and I don't know what it was, but there was somebody in there who looked at me wrong. They did something. They did something to, you know, they disrespected me. Uh, and afterwards they probably didn't do anything other. They didn't do anything of the sort. But I was 10 foot tall and feeling pretty bulletproof. Um, and so I may have gotten loud with someone. I may have gotten in someone's face. From what I remember being told afterwards, and to save me from getting the shit beat out of me, the manager was, basically to my buddies were like, "You need to get him out of here," which was probably the best thing that ever happened before I got shanked, or shot, or just got a good old ass whipping. Um, so a real quick Nogales story. I'll turn it over to Roger. Uh, so Luke brought up Nogales, man. I forgot about Nogales. So we went down to Nogales one time, and there's this place down there, and I forget the name of it, but it's in Nogales, so it's automatically seedy, and not a place you should really be, especially after the sun goes down. So we're in this bar, and you had to walk up this really long flight of stairs to get up to it, because it was on like the second floor off the street. And there was a bouncer down at the street level, and we went down, and there was probably like 7 or 8 of us that went down there. So we're up there, and one of the guys that we were with, they thought this dude was on like the Peruvian national soccer team or something. Um, and he was Hispanic. He was actually Puerto Rican, but they thought this guy was like some big soccer star. So they're like protecting, the bouncers upstairs are kind of keeping people away from us and everything. And so this guy comes over. He's super drunk. He starts messing with our group a little bit, and so this bouncer at the top of the stairs tosses this dude out of the club. And when I say tosses him, I don't mean like they escorted him out, right? And it was, it's kind of like the Ron White piece. Like, okay, it's time for you to go. They threw this dude down the stairs like he was a bale of hay. And dude, we're in there about maybe an hour later, and all you hear is like 2 or 3 gunshots, rapid succession. And everybody was like, what is going on? And it was close, right? It was close. And then you have somebody come running up off the street and they're telling everybody to get to the back of the club. They're telling everybody to get to the back of the club. And at that point, we're like, we're leaving. Like, we're out of here. Like, we gotta make a run for the border. And we come back down, and as we're coming out, the bouncer that was sitting at the door on the by the on the sidewalk leading where the stairs lead up at, that dude's head had been turned into a canoe, and everybody would do. We literally ran the 500 yards or whatever it was back to the border to get back into the states. So one of my good Nogales stories, man. What a
That
what a
place is like
town.
the Wild West, or at least it used to be. I don't
Truly.
even think soldiers can go anymore, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they ban Mexico for years?
Yeah, they banned Mexico. It was actually like a year or two after that. I was back out there TDY for something, and it was like, hey, let's go to Nogales, and they're like, nope, it is closed for soldiers.
I'm kind of curious. I mean, because now obviously as a civilian we can go across, but I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna take my chances. I mean, the place has got to be a ghost town by now. I would think, not having any
I
soldiers down there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, other than the cartel, stacking people into the back of 18 wheelers only to have them, you know, die in San Antonio in the heat.
Yeah.
Jesus, Jesus. So I pulled up this American Customer Satisfaction Index, and it's all the fact that they have KFC listed up there in the top 10. That tells you all you need to know right there. That has got to be like the worst customer service and the crappiest fast food in the history of like fast food chains. So you've got Chick-fil-A top of the list, 83. All others second at 79, which is where Popeyes falls. So Popeyes is just behind Chick-fil-A. Jimmy John's, okay, I can go with Jimmy John's. Domino's, not so much. KFC, fuck no. Chipotle, Panera, I guess you can get away with that. Pizza Hut's pretty good. Starbucks, Arby's, Five Guys, Papa John's, Burger King, Little Caesars. Little Caesars, really? Little Caesars.
Are they still in
Panda
business?
They are out here, man. The $5 whatever, hot and ready. Heck yeah, man. I ever tell you that story when so I'm coming home one day from work, and we had a Little Caesars by the house. And it was back when I had like an hour and a half commute, man. I'm coming home, I smell the pizza, and I'm like, man, I'm getting hungry. Right, you can smell it, kind of like when you were talking about shawarma. I'm in my stomach, she's like grumbling and this and that. And I call my wife. I'm like, hey, you want me to grab 2 Little Caesars pizzas on the way home? She's like, yeah, that's cool. We don't have to cook or whatever. I go in there, I get 2 hot and readies, and they're pepperonis, and they're sitting now. This Little Caesars to my house is probably like 2 miles. So I go in, I get 2 hot and readies. The passenger seat of my truck. Luke probably already knows where this is going. There's like 8 or 9 stoplights within that 2 miles because we lived around a mall or whatever. Dude, by the time we got home, she's like, I thought you said you were getting 2. I had scarfed down an entire Caesar's pizza and the 8 or 9 stoplights between the Little Caesars to my house. Dude, I didn't make it out. I come out of the parking lot, and the first stoplight is right across the mall. So it's not the main drag. So it's already, it's going to be a long light. So I'm there. It feels like 3 minutes. And dude, you smell it. It's hot and ready. So I open it up, and I'm just like, bloop, throw one piece. I threw that thing down my gullet like it was a donut, right? So I was like, you know what? Might as well have another piece or whatever. And then the next thing you know, man, you eat a slice like at every stoplight. There's only like 10 slices to a pizza. I get home, and I had already scarfed down an entire Little Caesar pizza by myself. So I was very proud of myself that day. But anyway, debunking. Oh, you know what? Popeyes did make the list. Shit. I wish I hadn't scrolled down this far. So
Oh wait, hold on.
Popeyes.
How are you debunking it? Who's number one?
Anyway,
Oh, okay.
Popeyes. I wish I hadn't scrolled down all the way because Popeyes is actually next to last.
Where it belongs.
It's above McDonald's. McDonald's is the very end. So I don't know. When you go to, and this is interesting, go to full service restaurants, Guess who's number one for full service restaurants?
TGI
Who?
Fridays.
Applebee's.
Longhorn Steakhouse,
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I get that.
followed by Texas Roadhouse,
That makes sense too.
and in third place, which I would have actually 1, 2, 3. So Longhorn and Texas are both tied, which obviously makes sense. Who I would have thought was number one, Cracker Barrel comes in after Texas Roadhouse. I would have thought Cracker Barrel would have been like top of the list. And Josh,
No, man, Cracker Barrel's gone downhill, man.
I hate to tell you this, that Waffle House did not make the list.
Well, that's some bullshit.
See, the list is bullshit. So you have Longhorn.
You know what? Of in-service ones, ones that are sit down ones. Yeah, Chick-fil-A, man,
Longhorn,
is number one.
Texas, Cracker Barrel, Fridays, Olive Garden, Outback, Red Robin. Which I don't know about you guys. I don't know the last time you've been to Red Robin. The Red Robin out here is actually pretty legit. It's nice and clean, good food. Chili's, the Cheesecake Factory, which I would have thought would have been higher on that list too. I'd have thought they'd have been like a top 5. Denny's, of all places. But that's hit or miss, right? I think Denny's, it just depends on where you're at. Like our Denny's is super clean. The one in Vegas, not so much. Followed by Red Lobster, Buffalo Wild Wings, which I would have thought would have been higher on the list. At least it used to be. Then Applebee's, closed out by IHOP. So I don't know, Luke, what do you think about that list?
I think that a lot of those places, I think we've talked about this on the show. First of all, Buffalo Wild Wings is hot garbage, man. I haven't eaten at a Buffalo Wild Wings and had a good meal. Probably.
But how do you F up chicken wings? Like chicken wings, you just deep fry them, right? You throw them in the fryer.
I think I don't know. Cheap ingredients, man. That's all there is to it, I think. But I believe we talked about on the show, with very rare exceptions. I just don't like eating out. Rare exceptions. Now, when we put out our book, I promise you that Josh won't go down the list. Tulsa, Seattle, LA, Alexandria, San Antonio, they won't all be Chick-fil-A. Okay. He's not just going to give you Chick-fil-A locations in every city. He'll come out with some zingers. Those mom and pop places are good, but again, that's a roll of the dice, right? Unless you're talking Korean, or like mom and pop Mexican in San Antonio. Oh, it's hard to go wrong there. But yeah, I don't know, man. I did have Chick-fil-A the other night. All I got was some nuggets and some strips. Pretty good, man. It was pretty good. And then the last time I ate at Popeyes, I was telling Rogers, like, I'm on the fence, but the last time I ate at Popeyes, it just was not good. And it just, I don't know what, they must have had a bad shift or something. I don't know, but I'll give Popeyes another chance. Water's wet. It's good. I think their chicken sandwich is all right. You don't think so?
They may be okay, but they're not better than Chick-fil-A's. Like
their spicy chicken sandwich kicks the shit out of Chick-fil-A, and no, Chick-fil-A's not bad. It's just it's not as good as Popeyes.
It's not bad. Whatever, dude. Yeah. Man,
you already said the list was crap, so there you go.
Of the sit down one, yeah.
Whatever.
No, dude. So y'all saw me. For those of you watching YouTube, you saw me get up from my seat a second ago. I had a little fight with a wife. She told me to stop acting like a flamingo. And so I'm sorry, but I just had to put my foot down. So those Josh, are best. So real quick, I know you don't want to talk about politics, but what's your take on Cassidy Hutchinson and her testimony in the January 6th hearings, which are not anything that apparently has ever been done in Congress before? Not quite like this.
Oh Lord. Okay. Real quick though, I gotta ask you this: what's the difference between a hippo and a Zippo?
I don't know.
One's really heavy and the other's a little lighter. See, dude. I got dad jokes for days. We're gonna make whoever that guy is that left a 2-star review. I hope he listens again, because we're gonna have him rolling. We're gonna have him absolutely rolling. No, so this whole Cassidy Hutchinson thing, I thought I was watching like a younger version of Christine Blasey Ford. You have somebody. Here's the best way to sum up her entire testimony, right? So she testified that Trump lunged and tried to take control of the steering wheel, from a Secret Service agent that was driving him on January 6th. My first thought was, if that story had a shred, and she was like the surprise witness, right? The October surprise in June. If that story had a shred, a shred of truth to it, they would have subpoenaed the driver. They would have subpoenaed the Secret Service agent that was driving when Trump supposedly lunged and tried to take control of, the vehicle, right? And I've heard two accounts. That one, they said he was in an SUV, not the Beast, which is the presidential limo, and then I've heard that he's inside the presidential limo. I've never been inside the presidential limo, but I've seen schematics. I've seen cutouts of stuff like that, and I know that you can't lunge into the driver's compartment from the
They
back
totally let
and
him
try and
ride
take the wheel.
shotgun. They let the
Yeah,
president ride shotgun.
yeah. Trump's like, nah, man, I got shotgun, brother. I'm up front. And what's he going to do? A dead driver drill from, like we did at BSR, right? He's going to drive from the right seat. Like, come on, get out of here. I know of at least, and this is purely anecdotal, but one person who was like, you know what, man, I don't. I don't think what happened on January 6th was right, but I don't think people should still be in jail. They were just like, let them look at the evidence and and see what it is. They listened to that and they were like, this entire thing is a sham. Like, this is all 100% BS. And I was like, of course it is. And I think I think they've lost people a little bit with this, because it was so it was so egregious and just so outlandish that you were like, are you like, this is it? This is your surprise witness? This is what you got? This is like when Adam Schiff, talked about, quote, I have seen the evidence of, Trump Russia collusion from 2016. And you're like, all right, where is it? Oh, well, I mean, and you're like, really? That that's your big witness? That's your big surprise? The whole thing is BS. I think they're losing people. They lost people before, but I really think that they lost more, last week. But, you know, dude, it's genius on their part. What they did is absolutely genius, because now the same day that she testified, the Secret Service driver who was actually driving the vehicle with Trump inside of it, made a statement, said, "Hey, I'm ready to testify under oath that everything she said about that particular event is bullshit." And what happened? Immediately what happened? Adam Kinzinger and crew have come out and was like, "Well, that guy's a liar." It's like, you don't even know that dude. You don't even know who that guy is. You've got some lady up there. I don't mean to assume her gender, but you have some person up there who is like, well, I heard it from well, Becky's baby daddy heard it from his second cousin who got it from his barber, that this is what happened. And the guy who was actually there when this supposed event happens, like, no, that didn't happen. And they're like, that guy's a liar. It's just it's all so obvious. It's kabuki theater is what it is. This is all kabuki theater. So I don't know. But Luke, what are your thoughts on her testimony? But you're gonna have to wait. What's a 4-man rock band that doesn't sing?
I don't know.
Mount Rushmore, baby.
Roger, you can't beat that, but I can. How many the people on YouTube will get this joke better than just listening, but here goes. How many optometrists does it take to change a light bulb? 1 or 2? 1 or 2? So, Cassie Hutchinson, I don't, man. All hearsay. I'm gonna just second what you said, Josh. This is ridiculous. I mean, since when is a committee formed in Congress where one party picks all the participants and there is no cross-examination whatsoever of any of the witnesses? I mean, it's disgusting what's going on. I don't know if it's going to backfire, Roger. I think people are pretty set in their stances on January 6th. I don't know if this is changing anyone's mind. I bet what you're going to say, well, I don't know. I'll just say what I think possibly could happen. You tell me what you think or why they're doing this, is to kind of keep Trump from running again. I think that's the ultimate goal, because I don't see any prosecutable anything with this. Nothing. DOJ, I think that Merrick Garland's going to have a lot of pressure to prosecute, but maybe they're hoping that, hey, maybe this is just something we can keep Trump from running again. And which I think is a mistake. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, you're spot on. That's the whole thing, is to sway public opinion. But I think you hit it on the head with, people have already made up their mind whether they're going to support Trump or not. You've got people like Josh that are off the Trump train and jumped off, 6 months ago, and you've got other folks that, they love him, hate him, whatever. I do think, like, Josh was talking about his performance with the endorsements in Georgia. It is. It's going to be regional, right? It's just going to depend on the state. Some states he's going to do very well in. Other states he's not going to. It just depends, because everybody's different. The big thing with Cassidy Hutchinson that bothered me was, one, outside of her testimony, I mean, she should be tried for perjury because she perjured herself. Like, even the handwritten note that
100%.
she wrote or whatever, Trump's lawyer came out and was like, she didn't write that. I wrote that. And that should be pretty easy to determine, right? And then, like you said, with the whole thing's a sham. Like you said, they don't have any Republican picked representation there. No cross-examination. All of the quote unquote evidence with the videos are all doctored. Even Liz Cheney, she posted timelines that were inaccurate. Schiff right out lied and added words to a tweet, or took words out. I mean, it's all theater. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's theater. But what got me most, outside of her lying about everything, is, or I shouldn't say everything, at least the two incidents, is all the pundits in the media. I mean, nobody does due diligence anymore, right? And Josh is typing, yeah, they got their narrative out first. And that's exactly it. And they did it with the help of the media, because nobody checked. And I go back, and it's funny because I don't see, so you had her testimony, and then you get on the Twitterverse, and it's just, bombshell, ABC, Reuters, AP, this and that. Once that thing stewed for about 24 hours and the Secret Service came out and said, yeah, that didn't happen. Now, do I believe that there's a part of that? Yeah. Did Trump yell, hey, take me to the Capitol, I'm the effing president? Yeah, probably. I can see that happening. Him riding shotgun and lunging over the other Secret Service agent who was riding passenger, and then the driver, and then, come on, man. Like, seriously? I mean, and they know that, but it's the media jumped on all this stuff like it was the truth, did zero due diligence, and then 24 hours later, you don't even see it anymore. 24 hours later, because they know, and the media won't even go back and correct it. I've seen one or two that have said, well, the Secret Service guy is willing to testify. Well, why not put him on a stand? Because it's not about the truth. And, I think what's ultimately going to happen with this thing, one, you're not convincing anybody. Like Luke said, you're trying to build a case for him not to run again. But I also think they played it too early. And if you did think this was going to be effective, I don't know. You played it too early, and I don't know that you've swayed anybody's decision. So at the end of the day, it's just all, are you taking away from what the real problem, and this is my issue with it all as well. You're taking away from the real problems out there are. We tweeted, talking about, remember last year, how you saved 13 cents this year on ketchup on your 4th of July barbecue. Hey, how much did you save this year? Oh yeah, none. Went up quite a bit, right? You've got gas prices that are going through the roof. And oh, by the way, there are like 7 states today that actually increased their state gas tax. So it's even going to get higher outside of just what the normal price of crude oil is. And Luke can touch on that with Gavin Newsom, what he said the reasoning was for it. But, you're trying to create a distraction to take people away from inflation and fuel prices and energy and this and that. But you know what? Come today, here in about another couple hours, reality is going to slap everybody in the face again when they go put, that gas pump in their tank. right? And that's the problem with inflation. That's the problem with fuel is no matter what, narrative you want to push out there, no matter what picture you want to paint, at the end of the day, it's going to come back to the economy. And we're not talking about the broader economy. Stock markets go up and down. You have big days, you have slow days. It's going to come down to that pain at the pump, man. The pain at the pump, and what you're paying for groceries, especially for holidays like this. And he can say Russia, Russia, Russia. I don't care how many times he says it. He says it blue in the face. But one, it doesn't matter because prices are still high. And if you look at the last couple of videos that he's put out there, like how long should Americans be willing to pay the price at the pump in support of the war in Ukraine? And he basically came out and said forever. That's his bottom line. So I'll throw it over to Luke for any of his final comments. And I think he's got one other thing he wants to kick around.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, Roger, as usual. Well, you guys are smart in this episode for sure. That Gavin Newsom thing, that was such a ridiculous statement he made. And it wasn't necessarily about the tax increase, because I think 9 or 10 states are increasing their gas tax over the long weekend to line their coffers with the taxpayers' dime, as usual. But Gavin Newsom, excuse me, Gavin Newsom was saying that he is not going to suspend the gas tax in California. Why? His great reason is, well, because he doesn't trust the oil companies to do their part. So it's like, that doesn't even make any sense. I don't understand it. Oh, whatever. And I hope they put that guy up for president. I really do. They're talking about Gavin Newsom running. Man, bring it. Just bring it. And then not Jimmy Kimmel. Who's the other late night host? Oh, the other late night host. What's his name?
Adam Colbert or Stephen Colbert.
Stephen Colbert had AOC on his show the other night, and he was like, "So someone's going to turn 35 exactly 1 month after the election. Are you thinking about running for president?" Well, AOC. Ugh. But so, man, they're just sending all these feelers out. Man, oh man, can you imagine an AOC presidency? Whoa. Yeah, that'll be fun. So in couple things, kind of slow it down a little bit or whatever, kind of start wrapping it up. July 4th weekend. I think this will be out after July 4th, but we hope everybody had a safe and enjoyable July 4th. It's my personal favorite holiday, followed by Thanksgiving. Love it. You don't have to buy people presents. There's no real pressure on July 4th. It's my favorite holiday for, you probably imagine the reasons. But yeah, so Josh, historical figures, U.S. historical figures that you would love to, 2 things. You can pick 2, they can be the same one, but just sit down and have a couple of beers with, okay? Pick one for that. And then pick one where you'd like to sit down and just get trashed with them.
Oh man. Real quick to close out that last piece, I don't trust, AOC, I don't trust Colbert, I don't trust Kinder, I don't trust any of them. And you know who else I don't trust? I don't trust Stairs. They're always up to something. Always up to something. Oh, yeah. I love it. So who I would like to sit down and have a few beers with, man, I'd have to say one person. It's a long list, but I'll pick one just to for the sake of time. One, so I just got done watching this two episode kind of documentary. They're about an hour and a half, hour 45-minute a piece on Teddy Roosevelt. Man, what's an all around interesting individual, and I read about it, obviously read about him before, read up on him. I wouldn't mind. I'd like to have a couple beers with Teddy Roosevelt. And dude, just everything that he did in his life was absolutely crazy. I mean, yeah, he was the original progressive. Starting the Bull Moose Party and everything. But he did a lot of good where it needed to. There were some things that he did that were progressive that needed to be done at the time, right? The cigar bill in New York, and you got little kids working in meat packing plants, and getting those things, you can't be scraping meat off the floor of a meat packing plant and in 1909 and then putting it on people's tables. And those are some of the things that he fixed. So those were good things. Somebody who I would love to sit down and get just hammered with, man, I'd have to say, man, it'd be a toss up: Jefferson, Madison, or maybe even Thomas Paine. Um, I I think Thomas Paine would probably be somebody that I would love to sit down and get trash with. You're talking about, dude, because you want to talk about somebody, one of the original gangsters. It was Thomas Paine. He was ready to burn everything down from very early on. So yeah, so that'd be my two. Have a few beers with Teddy Roosevelt and hear about his ride up San Juan Hill, and get trash with Thomas Paine, and talk about how he gave both barrels to the British. Who's
So
your two, Roger?
so I have more than two, and I have different reasons for having beers. So one, as far as having beers, any of the founding fathers, right? I think you look at any of the founding fathers having beers to sit there and especially if you can do it with today's context and like, hey, what was your thought process? What did because you always hear, oh, they didn't have AR-15s back in 17. It's like, yeah, I got it. They didn't have the internet either, guy. But to actually see what they thought, because especially when you look at the language they use in the Constitution, and not just the Constitution, but the Federalist Papers, that type of stuff. It'd be very interesting to have some beers with them. I would also like to have beers with some of the leaders on the far left, and for different reasons, and not necessarily historical, but like when you look at today's, because like AOC, okay, what I wouldn't give to sit down, have a couple beers, and be like, come on now. I mean, like, do you really believe this? Like, do you truly believe this? Or like, what's your thought process? Because that's what it all comes down to is, for me anyways, understanding their thought process. We all have different reasons for believing what we believe. To some extent, we're always going to side with those that butter our bread the best. If you retired from Ford, guess what? You're probably going to be a big union guy. I get it. If you're retired from the military, there's certain stances we take based off our upbringing, paychecks, paying bills, financial situation, this and that. But it's sitting down with like a Bernie Sanders or sitting down with an AOC or a Pelosi, or she was like, do you really believe this? And I guess I could say that on the right as well. Or is this, is there some other motivation, or is it all just pure politics? As far as getting trashed, I'm telling you this right now, not a historical figure, but just from listening to some of his podcasts, Joe Rogan, hands down. I would apparently this guy goes out and lights it up every night to like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So hands down, not a historical figure, but that's who I'd get smashed with. Luke?
I think Joe Rogan is a great answer because, we're always, kissing Joe Rogan's butt and everything, but I think it's for good reason. I think that guy is a great American.
Well,
I
he's got a
think,
good up and coming show that's
yeah,
clipping at the heels of Culper's Canteen Cup. So,
I mean, he's, we're watching him real close for that. But the guy, I imagine that if a guy had even a wider audience, like, old school 1968 mainstream audience, like, so if he was being piped in to everyone at the same time for just 30 minutes a day, if you could boil that down, it would be tough and it would be a change of format. All I'm saying is, I think the guy, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of opinions, is the most trusted man in America right now. The most trusted person in America is probably Joe Rogan. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Joe Rogan did more and has done more for actual COVID awareness than the government could ever dream of doing, that most doctors could ever dream of doing. The guy approached it, told people, hey, just get in shape, man, lose weight. Because, man, it really is that simple. It really is that simple. I understand, there are complications. I understand, whatever. But the guy is trustworthy. I think that's a great answer. And I think he is a great American. I think he will be a historical figure. Um, I to have a couple beers with, I'm with Roger. It's like, man, it's tough to decide any one of the founding fathers. But I got to go with, I guess, Benjamin Franklin. I think he's if I had to narrow it down to one person, and who's a prominent American, where I'd have to prepare for that, having a couple beers though. I had to prepare and be relaxed so I could just, like you said, like pick their brain and just like, man, like, how did you think of this? Like, what was the process of thinking of this? And as far as or Thomas Jefferson would be a good one too. Maybe I'll say I'd like to get trashed with Benjamin Franklin, talk about his forays in France, and listen to those stories. But Thomas Jefferson, man, picking that guy's brain. Here's what I would do: a couple beers with Thomas Jefferson. I'd set up cameras where he couldn't see, right, and it would be a long conversation because a lot of it would be me telling him, "Hey, this is what's going on right now. This is what's going on in the U.S." And at the end, with the cameras rolling, I would say, "What do you think we should do?" And he would say, "Burn it all down, burn it all down." And I would do the Will Smith
Yes.
presenting like this to the cameras. I'd be looking at the cameras going, see, we told you that's what he would say. So I don't know. I think it would be interesting to get his perspective on what's going on now. And I guarantee it would be similar to, hey, burn it all down. So that's my answer. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm done. I'd like to give a shout out to, and I'll leave the majority of this for Josh, but Jerry Cole. It's a kind of a sad anniversary. I'm kind of dedicating this show to him, along with the ones we do on Memorial Day a lot of times. So I'll let Josh go on from there.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Yeah, so all great choices of folks to sit down and and pick their brains and have beer with and get trash with. A good time would definitely be had by all. So yeah, like Luke said, dedicating this episode to Gerald LaRue Cole. 6 years ago today, Jerry became part of the 22 a day, average veterans that take their lives. Jerry was a good friend of all of ours, and there's quite a few of our listeners out there who were very close with Jerry as well. So it's never an easy day, but we know that Jerry's up there hanging out, looking down on us, and laughing. And for those that are overseas, he's telling you, don't miss that BOCO date. Don't miss that BOCO date. So if you want to know what that means, you're gonna have to. I've already had to explain it to my wife. I don't want to have to explain it to my mom or anybody else that is listening. So if you want to know what that is, you go ahead and you can message us, and we'll let you know. But yeah, that big old laugh, and don't miss your BOCO date. That's what he's saying. So that's going to do it for this episode. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it back to Luke. So Luke's going to close us out here.
Big thanks to everyone for listening. Really appreciate it. Again, have a happy 4th of July. I hope you had one. And I know gas is expensive right now. And remember that July 3rd, the day before July 4th, obviously, is Sunday. With gas prices being so expensive, you may not be able to make it to church. I understand that. You can always worship at home. And if you're Catholic, or if you need to baptize a baby, for instance, I have a tried and true recipe for making holy water at home. You can do it at home. All you have to do is boil the hell out of it. And with that, keep your canteen cups full and tightly secured.